Hey guys, welcome back. Today on the Untidy Artist, we're making a Christmas tree fairy. I have wanted for a long time to make a fairy doll and have the skirt look like a Christmas tree. And it took me a while to kind of figure out exactly how to get it to look the way that I wanted it. I'm really excited with how it turned out, and I'm excited to show you how I put this cute little fairy doll together. So let's grab some supplies and get started. So the first thing you're going to need is a fairy doll. If you're new to making fairies, you'll want to check out my basic fairy doll tutorial. In that tutorial, I teach you how to take a wooden bead, a piece of floral wire, and embroidery floss and twist it into this cute little doll. There are very simple step-by-step instructions in that tutorial, and it'll give you all of the basics you need to make your fairy doll. The next thing you'll need, and this was kind of what inspired this whole Christmas tree fairy doll, I found these really cute lights in the scrapbooking section of Michael's, and I just thought I envisioned them wrapped around a skirt that looked like a Christmas tree, and that was kind of my vision for this doll. Then I have some other things to decorate her skirt with. This cute little Christmas pearl garland. I thought these looked like little Christmas ornaments. And then I also have some tinsel-y looking trim that we're going to use to wrap around the skirt to make it look like a Christmas tree. So any types of embellishments you can find that kind of look like they would belong on a Christmas tree. And then I have this pretty green flower. We're going to be using this as the base for our dress. And you'll notice I picked a flower that had wider petals. It will give us a really good base to build up our Christmas tree on top of. And then you'll need some thread. I have a lighter green and a darker green. We'll use this to dress our doll. And then we have some different types of artificial pine trees. So a couple tips with this. You'll want to make sure that when you're picking out your different types of pine, that you're looking for some that lay flat. You don't want them to be really full and rounded. We want them to be flat because we want them to lay down on her skirt. So you'll want to make sure that you don't get any that have tons of pine needles sticking out everywhere. You can see that these are quite thin and lay flat because we're going to be laying these on the top of her dress. I chose to use 3 different kinds of pine. I liked the different variations it gave the skirt. You can use obviously just one kind if you'd rather. And you can see here, I just got these stems in the floral section at Michael's. And we'll just be clipping off little pieces of these to use on our skirt. Then you'll need a sharp pair of scissors. And I have my trusty glue gun set on low. I would highly recommend using a dual temperature glue gun for this project. We do a lot of detailed gluing, and having it set on a low setting means you're not going to get burned, or at least hopefully not get burned as much. So please be careful, and if you can get a dual temperature glue gun, I recommend that. Okay, let's get started. So I've already twisted together my cute little fairy doll, and we are ready to dress our doll. So I'm going to take my lighter color of green, and I'm going to give her some sleeves and a pair of shorts. You'll find more detailed instructions on how to dress your doll in that basic fairy doll tutorial. And then I decided to give her a pair of shoes, so I'm taking my darker green and I'm going to give her some shoes. And once you have your doll all dressed, you can set her aside, and we're going to start getting the skirt ready. So I'm going to take apart my green flower. One thing I recommend is when you're looking for flowers for fairy doll making, try and find flowers that don't have a lot of glue on them. I did not realize how much glue this flower had on it, and it was kind of tricky pulling it apart. Plus then you've got weird looking glue that's on your skirt. Because we're covering this up with the pine, I decided to just go ahead and use it anyway because I really loved this color of green. A really good tip, if you do find a flower that has a lot of glue holding it together, you can try and use a hairdryer to help melt that glue and pull it apart. But try and find flowers that don't have tons of glue on them. So I'm just using a few layers of this green flower. This top layer had more of a shiny material, and I thought it would be really cute for our base layer at the top. So I'm going to cut an X into each of the flowers so that I can slide the petals up and around her waist, and starting with the layers on the top, I'm going to put them on my doll in the order that I want the skirt to be, and then I'm going to take a little bit of glue and just tack it together. We'll be doing a lot of gluing of the skirt. You don't want to go crazy gluing it together at this point, just enough to hold it in place. Then you'll want to grab your pine, and it's time to start building our Christmas tree look. So I, first of all, cut off little pieces and kind of held them up to the skirt to get a feel for how big they needed to be. And some of them, I trimmed some of the top off of it, and I just totally cut these different types of pine apart so that I had a couple piles of different pieces of the greenery that we're going to use to work into her skirt. So I'm starting with the bottom layer, and I'm just going, so I'm putting, there's the top layer, and I'm just sliding this pine between the top layer and the lower layers. And you can see I cut it so it's a little, so when it pokes out from the bottom of the skirt, it's a little bit longer than the skirt. And you can see how it's important to have the pine needles that lay flat so that they flow with her skirt. So I'm just putting a few different pieces of the pine in this section of her skirt. And this is going to kind of be our base of our Christmas tree. So I liked that these little pieces of pine were wider. It gave her skirt a nice shape. So just carefully working those in with little dabs of glue. I also absolutely love the glitter that was already on this pine that I got. It just is so sparkly and pretty. So I put about 5 or 6 on the bottom layer. And then I moved on to the top layer, but this time I'm using some of the smaller pine that I got. They're a little bit more intricate and had more pine needles on them. And I'm going to put a layer around the top of her skirt. So you can see that we're just covering up that glue that was on the top of the flowers. And just work slowly and start adding the pieces of pine evenly around the top of her skirt. I will tell you that this doll took quite a bit of time to make. She's one of the more intricate dolls I've made, and it was very time consuming. I think she turned out so cute that it was totally worth it. But I did pay a lot of attention to detail and worked in different pieces of the pine so that they all laid pretty and looked like a Christmas tree. And then I'm going to move back to that bottom layer, and I'm going to start adding in some layers of the other types of pine, just in between that base layer that we already had. And keep cutting and gluing the pine. And you can make this part as detailed as you'd like. And once you have her and the tree part of her skirt to the fullness that you want it, it is time to decorate our tree. So I am grabbing my Christmas lights, and I'm going to put that layer on first. So like I said, I found these in the scrapbook section at Michael's. I do know that they still carry them, so I will put that in the link below. I thought this is what made her dress for me. I saw these and thought, oh my gosh, it would be so cute to have a doll that had the little Christmas lights around her skirt and have it look like a Christmas tree. So she's a Christmas tree fairy. So I just wrapped them around. I started on the top layer and wrapped them around evenly, and then I just dabbed little tiny dabs of glue to hold down the individual lights so it didn't move around a ton. And then I cut it, and then I did a separate layer to go around the bottom portion of her skirt. So I just kind of wound them in and out of the pine. I honestly felt like I was decorating a Christmas tree while I was doing this, and then I tacked those into place with some glue. Then I'm going to add my garland layer. So I thought this looked like little Christmas ornaments, and I loved the contrast of the silver on top of the greenery, plus it kind of picked up some of the sparkle from those pieces of pine that I had that already had the glitter on them. And once again, I'm just kind of tacking this in. I'm going to start with the bottom layer and go around the bottom, kind of weaving it in and out of the pieces of pine, just like you would if you were decorating a Christmas tree, but we're also using glue. So I would kind of tack it into place with a little piece of glue and then move on. working it into the pieces of pine as I went. And then you can see on the top, I did the same thing. I kind of looped that garland around. And now I'm going to grab the one that looked like the tinsel, and I'm going to wrap that around the bottom. Once again, just tucking it in and kind of working it in and out of the little pieces of pine. I love as you look at her skirt that the closer you look at it, the more detail you see. So I'm just tacking this into place with little pieces of glue, maybe every inch or so. You don't need to glue the whole thing down, but just enough to keep it in place. So I only did the garland part of the tinsel around the bottom of her skirt. And then I decided to tie a piece of it around her waist. I thought it was too busy if I put it around the top of her skirt next to the other garland. So I just decided to tie a piece of it around her waist so we still got that little bit of tinsel-y sparkle. So I just cut off a big piece and I'm going to tie it in a bow in the back. And I did make sure that I cut enough so that I could tie a bow and have some of it hang down over the top of her dress in the back. Now it's time to style your doll's hair. Now I decided to give her a ponytail hairstyle. You can style her hair however you want. I wanted to give her somewhat of an updo because I felt like having her hair down competed too much with her skirt. So I am doing a ponytail, and you can find a tutorial on how to do that on my YouTube channel, and I'll put a link for that tutorial in the comments below. So her hair is styled, and the last thing I decided to do was add a little bit of bling to the top of her hair. I didn't want to do anything that took away from the detail in her dress, so I just cut a few little pieces of the pine, and I'm going to just glue a few of those right at the top by her ponytail. And you can see I used the darker green, that same color that I used in her shoes, to wrap around the ponytail, so we had another pop of that green up there. And I put about 4 different pieces of the pine at the top, and then I grabbed a little tiny piece of the tinsel, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue behind that and just kind of tack that on top of the pine. And then I grabbed the garland, and I'm just going to cut 3 of these tiny little balls off, and I'm going to glue those into place just to give us a little bit more shine and sparkle up at the top of her dress. But I loved that it repeated the same colors and patterns that are in her dress. And that's it, guys. You're all set. Like I said, this fairy doll did take me more time to make, but I'm so excited with how she turned out. This is exactly how I envisioned a Christmas tree fairy doll to look. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions or fairy dolls you'd like to see, please post those in the comments below. Give this tutorial a big thumbs up if you liked it. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. I have a lot of other tutorials coming out for the holidays, so if you want to be one of the first to find out when those tutorials come out, click on that bell icon and you'll be notified the second I come out with a new tutorial. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.